Let's move on with a look through the international newspapers of the day with Haxie Myers-Belkin. Hi there, Haxie.
Hi, Kat.
And you're going to start us off with some photos and some reporting out of eastern Aleppo.
Yes, if we start off by taking a look at the Wall Street Journal, their front page bears the headline, "Fleeing Syrians reach out for help amid bombardment," and with the accompanying photo we see just that, evacuees from eastern Aleppo waiting for a distribution of Russian food aid in a government-controlled area of Syria's second city. Now, the significance of that image becomes clear in the accompanying article, where we read that the Red Cross estimates that some 20,000 people have fled the bombardment of rebel-held areas in the past few days, and that civilians are bearing the brunt of the regime's shells and rockets. This article reminds us that Aleppo residents, activists and monitoring groups have for months been accusing Russia of bombing eastern neighbourhoods, even if Russia denies it. Now, the point being that while Russia may be distributing food aid to fleeing civilians, Russia is also at least in part responsible for the fact that they have to flee.
Russia may be in part responsible for the Wall Street Journal, but The Guardian has published an editorial which lays the blame for the humanitarian crisis on the feet of the West in general.
It does. The piece is headlined, "The West's Grim Failure." It argues that, backed by Moscow, Damascus has been allowed to enact a strategy of indiscriminate bombing, terror and destruction. It roundly condemns the West's reluctance to get embroiled in the conflict, that's how it puts it, and specifically America's decision to prioritise fighting the Islamic State organisation over ending the massacres carried out by Assad's forces.
The Times has a cartoon. It sees Assad as very much getting his way in Syria.
It does. It's a rather pertinent parody of the story of the three wise men who follow the star that leads them to the baby Jesus. But in the place of the wise men, you can see it there, we have President Assad and his backers, President Putin and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. And taking the place of that hope-giving star, we have an exploding bomb, all under the heading, "Yonder Star over Aleppo." And then you can see there in the bottom right-hand corner, President-elect Trump whistling, his back resolutely turned.
All right, let's move on now to a story that Stephen was just telling us more about in the business news, the OPEC oil meeting, a decision to cut oil production, oil prices already going up, but there's a bit more analysis in the newspapers.
Yeah, let's start with the front page of the Wall Street Journal, whose headline reads, "OPEC makes a deal at last." We read here that OPEC is hoping to achieve prices in the range of $55 to $60 a barrel, which would provide a much-needed boost to petroleum-dependent countries like Venezuela and Nigeria, which have been badly damaged by 2 years of prices that have often dipped below $50 a barrel. But the New York Times is predicting that while oil prices soared after the announcement, quote, "the euphoria in the market might not last." This piece outlines how a number of OPEC and non-OPEC countries have in fact been increasing their oil production in recent months. And this intense competition could, we read here, make OPEC's plan a little less meaningful.
All right, and those oil prices do feed into goods and services that we all use every day, so we'll have to see how those prices come out in the months to come. Looking to South America, Brazil and Colombia, of course, still reeling from the plane crash that killed 71 people, including so many members of the Brazilian team Chapecoense.
Yes, as far as the investigation is concerned, there's a piece in the Telegraph that outlines how the plane crashed after being denied the opportunity to land because another plane had already begun an emergency descent. Meanwhile, as for the outpouring of grief and solidarity, that's being covered extensively in the South American press. Brazilian paper O Globo is leading with what it calls one of the most beautiful gestures in the history of world football. Chapecoense had been travelling to Medellin in Colombia to play Atlético Nacional. On Wednesday night, the Colombian team's stadium hosted a night of tributes to the team that they should have played at the finals of the Copa Sudamericana. Meanwhile, Medellin-based El Colombiano is reporting that chants of "Vamos, vamos," Chape, that's how Chapecoense was known by their fans, rang out throughout the stadium during the evening.
All right, just one brief last story. The French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo is now getting a German edition.
It is, as of today, Charlie Hebdo is no longer merely a French phenomenon. The magazine, known for its biting satire, is launching in Germany. In the wake of the bloody terrorist attack that targeted the publication's editorial team in 2015, sales of the magazine soared, with Germans nabbing 70,000 copies of the Survivors edition. But this first German edition has a typically provocative cartoon on the front. Angela Merkel on the toilet enjoying a copy of Charlie Hebdo.
There we go. Something for Angela Merkel to have a read of later on, perhaps. Thanks very much, Haxi Myers-Belkin there with our International Press Review.